Motivation myths unlocked. Why you don't need to feel ready to take action. In this week's episode, we're going to talk all about motivation and how you can get it when you don't really feel ready. Let's jump on in. Hey there, and welcome back to the Bounce Back Better podcast. If you're listening and you listened to last week's episode, you know we did that full mid-year reset, reflect, reignite, recommit, and today we're going to go deeper into the M word. So the M word, motivation. And the truth is motivation is overrated. Controversial? Maybe. But I see way too many people waiting around for motivation like it's a bus that's running late. So what if I told you it's not coming? Here's what we're going to cover today: why motivation disappears and how to stop relying on it. The sneaky myths you've probably believed, what actually keeps you moving when life's chaotic, real stories from my coaching clients from the past, and practical tools that you can start using today. No pep talk required. So are you ready? Let's bust some myths. The myth of comparison and motivation. So one of the fastest ways you will kill your motivation is through comparison. You scroll through Instagram or Facebook and you see someone else smashing their goals, looking perfect. You're looking at their show reel, mind you, you're not looking at their real world. And suddenly you feel like your tiny win doesn't count anymore. But here's what you didn't see. It took years for them to get there. The support systems they might have that you don't, the full context behind the highlight reel. So comparison doesn't just steal joy, it steals action, because you will go from how do I move forward to why do I even bother? So here's my new rule. Inspiration is helpful. So you can get some inspo from, somebody else's show reel if you want, but comparison is not. It makes you shrink, so you need to mute it. And if you make it stretch, you will follow it. So who do you compare yourself with the most? And what story are you telling yourself because of that comparison? Now, I have actually done this myself in the past. Oh my gosh, it does my head in. I might see something and I think, I want to do that. I've been meaning to do that for ages. That's what I want. But because I haven't got to it, generally because I haven't fitted it in or I haven't prioritized it, I haven't given it my 100% focus. And because I haven't done that, then I haven't taken action because I've compared somebody else who has with my lack of doing it. And then I don't do it. It's a killjoy and it steals my happiness and it steals my progress forward. So if that's what you find yourself doing, whether that be anything, writing a book, getting fitter, going to the gym, doing a property development, creating a course, reading a book, whatever your goal is, whatever that thing that you want is, if you're comparing yourself to somebody else that has it and that's stopping you from moving forward, then don't. You need to make that change. Here's what I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't always feel like it. That doesn't mean anything's wrong. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're not for it. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you're human. I used to think successful people had endless drive. I thought they were wired differently. I thought they bounced out of bed full of ideas and laser focused and never faltered. Spoiler alert, they don't. What they have to do is a system for moving through the fog. They know their why. And when their energy is low, they set up habits to catch themselves. And when their motivation dips, they'll reconnect with their vision, with their why, and they'll do it weekly. Sometimes daily when you're having a bad day, and they surround themselves with people who help move them forward. Motivation doesn't live in your DNA. It lives in your environment. So the people that you're around on a regular basis will impact your ability to move forward. So just remember that you're not always going to feel like it, but you need to take action regardless of how you feel. And you need to surround yourself with people that will support you on your journey and encourage you and make your life maybe a little bit easier. So here's another one: expectation overload and the motivation crash. It's another trap that kills motivation. So what is expectation overload? We often set massive goals for ourselves, all or nothing goals, and then we beat ourselves up for not meeting them instantly. It's like expecting to build a mansion over the weekend. You don't fail because you're lazy. You fail because your expectations were unrealistic. And you need to start with the basement when it comes to building that mansion. Lay one brick at a time. If you haven't worked it out, in 6 months, you will eventually start noticing a change. Now, it's interesting. I do work in a mentoring program where I coach people around property development, hence the reason I've gone there. But I spoke to a guy last week, and he's been a little bit slow getting started, but the same thing. He's looking at the zoom out vision. Remember, I spoke about that last week. We zoom out and we see the big picture, the big goal of what we want to achieve. And that's cool because we can visualize it. Remember, then we attach our why to that. And that helps with the motivation and that desire to do the actions required when we don't feel like it. But when we're only focusing on the big zoom out, it makes it really difficult to do a small action. So we need to zoom out, then we need to zoom right in, laser focused on the zoom out image and think, what is that one thing I need to do? If it's around your health and fitness, is it a walk? Is it looking up, going to the gym? Is it going to the gym? Whatever it is, you just need to, don't make the task too big. Don't expect to get it done. Don't have big expectations on yourself, because that will stop you feeling motivated, because you will constantly feel like you're going to fail. So when I spoke to this person last week, I said, hey, mate, let's just stop. What would be useful right now? What if you were to spend 20 minutes between now and speaking to me next week doing X? Could you do that? He said, yeah, I absolutely could. I said, could you do it twice? He said, yeah, I could. I said, could you do it 3 times? He said, yeah, I could. Could you do it 4 times? He said, yeah, I actually could. I could do 20 minutes a day on that. I said, there is your answer. So he looked at that zoomed out vision. It's so big. It means, where do I even start? What do I even do? How? Like, it's just big. And I want you to think about your goal right now, the thing that you want to achieve. If you zoom out, how big is it? Are you just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know where to start. So you need to bring it all right back in and think, okay, a time allocation is a great way to do something. What if I gave it 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever the time is that you have? The big mistake that I often see is people go for an hour. And when you do that, when you go for the hour, it's often a little unrealistic. Not everybody has that hour spare. So if you haven't worked it out, it's about chunking small amounts of time. And there are plenty of examples that show us that just spending a little amount of time on a regular basis will get us there. So that's what you need to do. You need to start with a small action, a small step, or a small allocation of time. And sometimes just that small allocation of time, maybe it's 10 minutes, is to sit down and create the plan. So what if that thing that you haven't started, that you've zoomed out and see this massive thing that's really scary, what if you were to zoom in and spend 15 minutes planning what it is that you actually want and how you can get there? If it's write a book, you could start with a paragraph. You could start with a bullet point. Hell, you could start with getting the paper out, firing up the laptop. It doesn't matter. But whatever that thing is that you want to do, stop making it so big so you're overloaded and then you lose motivation. So where are your expectations crushing your effort? And what's your small version? What's your 1 brick version of the goal? What's that little thing you could do? So I've got another client story here. Fake name Danny. But the decision to keep going, Danny was building a coaching business. And while she was working full time, she found it kind of busy, and she's also a mum. So every night when she came home and children were in bed, she would spend the time trying to do something, but she was exhausted. She told me, I don't even know why I'm bothered. I'm not getting anywhere. So I asked her, hey, Danny, what would 1% progress look like this week? She paused and she said, I could really rewrite the About Me page on my website. So she gave herself 15 minutes and that was it. 3 days later, she emailed me. She'd not only rewritten it, she'd updated it and done it. So, and from that, a client read it and booked her, signed up, and that was a client. So it wasn't really about the page for her. It was about the momentum that changed things and the decision to act, even when motivation is feeling like it's zero. So your reminder here is action leads to clarity, and clarity begins with belief. and belief drives everything. So you're not always going to feel like acting, but you need to do actions. So you need to become a human doing and not a human being. And now I want to talk a little bit about dopamine and how it impacts action. So let's talk about the brain chemistry for a minute. So motivation is deeply linked to dopamine, and that's that feel-good chemical that's released when we anticipate a reward. So the problem, most of us have those big goals and they don't give you a dopamine hit straight away. Because here is what really happens is you procrastinate, you scroll, you seek instant gratification, and then nothing happens. So you need to hijack that system. You need to design micro rewards so you do get the dopamine hit. So after writing for 10 minutes or planning for 10 minutes or doing something for 10 minutes or 15 or 20, whatever you set yourself, play your favorite song. Start exercising, cross it off with a thick green marker. After sending that email, do the same. Do the thing that was scary and then get that dopamine hit. Celebrate it with a fist pump, a happy dance, anything that signals, yay, I did this. So here's your little coaching prompt today. What can you pair your hard habit with to make it more rewarding? What would make you feel good so you do get that dopamine hit? And this is how we rewire our brain to crave effort, not just outcome. And now I also want to talk about the identity shift behind motivation. So if you want to know the real key to lasting motivation, it's identity. If you see yourself as somebody who's inconsistent, you'll behave accordingly. If you believe you're someone who can't follow through, you'll keep proving yourself right. But if you shift the story to, I'm someone who honors their word. I'm building consistency, even when it feels messy. I do what I say I will, even in small ways. When you start doing that, your brain starts looking for proof of that new identity, and motivation then follows. So I want you to start saying it now. I am somebody who finishes what I start. Say it enough and your actions will start lining up. So I want you to try this. Each time you complete a task, whisper to yourself, that's who I am. That is who I am. And that is an anchor. And that's what you need. You need more anchors to remind you that you are somebody who does what they say they are going to do. And then we've got the wall of all wins. We often forget how far we've come. I encourage every client to start a wall of wins, a list, a jar that you put coins in or paper in, a journal, anything that records even the smallest success. Maybe you spoke up at a meeting, said no without guilt, went for a walk when you didn't feel like it. Wins aren't just always about results. They're about reps, repetition that reinforce who you're becoming. Build your wall. When your belief wobbles, it will hold you up. I've talked about clients going to the gym, and I've got another story about Kelly, who was Kelly in the gym door, really. She wanted to get back into fitness, hated the gym, kept saying, I'll start Monday. Gosh, I went over this last week, didn't I? Was something similar, because I used to be a Monday. I'll do that Monday. I'll start at Monday kind of girl. Every Monday came and went, nothing. So we set one goal, drive to the gym, sit in the car park for 5 minutes and then leave. Is that it? She thought it was hysterical. She laughed. That's pointless. But she did it. By week 2, she was able to walk inside. By week 3, she did 10 minutes on the bike. And that is a small shift in behavior. It will redefine how you see yourself if you do something like that, because it did that for Kelly. It redefined exactly how she saw herself. Now she's a regular, not because she's forced to be, but she's made herself motivated because she redefined success. So showing up was enough. Sometimes the hardest door to open is the one to the car, not the one to the gym. But once it's open, everything will change. Another thing about motivation isn't momentum, but it follows it. So let's take a moment or two to separate motivation from momentum. Motivation is a feeling. Momentum is a force. Got that? Motivation is a feeling. Momentum is a force. You don't always control the feeling, but you can always initiate the force. So start with something small, something ridiculously simple, something that feels laughably easy. When you prove to yourself that you can keep showing up, even at 10%, momentum builds. And that's where momentum goes. And once that happens, motivation will follow. This is why doing is the thing. And doing is so powerful, even when it's imperfect. What do I say? Those of you who know me, 80% done is better than 100% not started. The doing creates the belief. So let's talk about tiny habits that build a big belief. And James Clear said it best. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So what if you started casting daily votes? One glass of water means I prioritize my health. 1 10-minute declutters means I create a calm space. One message to a friend, I nurture my relationships. It all adds up. It always adds up. Motivation isn't the spark, action is. And the belief is the flame that follows. So you've got to take the actions, and that will build the belief, and that will give you the results. And you're not always going to feel like it. Okay, I've got another a wee story about a client who wanted to send a weekly email to her about database. And it was challenging for her because she wasn't 100% all over the how-to of it. And she was just nervous about sending it. And what if nobody opened it, and all of that drama that people that have emails do? Well, or have email lists and should do and don't. Well, she told me, I'm going to do that when I feel ready. I did it 3 weeks ago. There would always be a reason, but she wasn't consistently doing it. And that is something we have to do. And she's never going to feel ready. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, that's me, you're never going to feel ready. So you've got to stop waiting for ready. And what we did was we set a 5-minute timer each morning, and her only task was to work on that email for 5 minutes. And by the end of 2 weeks, she'd written it. And she was actually pretty shocked because it suddenly meant that she felt more motivated about it. But because momentum works like compounding interest, it starts slow and it builds fast. That 5-minute rule changed her identity from someone waiting to someone doing. So the language of motivation is another thing that's really important. Words matter. The way you talk to yourself can either fuel action or shut it down. Instead of saying, I have to do this, try saying, I get to do this. Feel the difference in the power of those two different scenarios. Instead of saying, I'm bad at staying consistent, say, well, I'm learning to show up. Instead of saying, this is too hard, try, this is stretching me. Your language doesn't just describe your world, it reshapes it. So just try changing one phrase this week and see how it shifts your mindset. Alrighty, final. Here's my last bit for this week's podcast, visualization. So who's the future you in motion? Let's end with a final breath. Take a deep inhale and ask yourself slowly. Picture yourself walking into a room. Your head is high. You're not perfect, but you're present. You've been showing up for yourself. You've built consistency, even in chaos. You feel strong. What did that version of you do differently? What did that person stop waiting for? Now, I want you to let that version of you lead you this week. They're not motivated, they're committed, and they're already inside you. So I hope you've got some great tidbits from this week's podcast on motivation. Next week, I've got a great interview, actually. It's with Rhoda Banks, and she wrote a book, and as a podcast, does all of that stuff. The book's called Daughter of an Assassin, and it's a true story. Oh my goodness, such an interesting chat we had. You will take a lot from next week's episode. But before we go this week, so that's next week. Look forward to seeing you there. Before we go, please text a friend and tell them how amazing they are. And if you know somebody who just needs that little bit of motivation and could get some useful tips out of this week's, well then I would love for you to share this podcast. All right, go forth and have a fabulous week. I'll chat with you next week. Bye for now.